I went into the woods on a day that felt completely normal. That's the part that still bothers me the most. There was no storm, no warning, no strange feeling in my gut telling me to turn back. It was late afternoon, the kind of day where the air feels heavy but calm, and the light filters through the trees in long yellow lines. I parked my car on the side of an old gravel road and stepped past the rusted gate that marked the start of an unofficial trail. I had walked in forests like this plenty of times before. I wasn't lost, I wasn't scared, and I wasn't rushing. The woods were quiet in a natural way. Leaves moved slightly in the breeze. Somewhere far off, I could hear birds. The ground was soft under my boots, a mix of dirt, pine needles, and damp leaves that had been there for years. I followed a narrow path that looked like it had been used before, though not recently. The edges were grown in, and small branches brushed against my legs as I walked. I remember thinking how empty the place felt, not abandoned exactly, just unused. As I went deeper, the trees grew closer together. The light changed. It wasn't darker, just dimmer, like someone had turned down the brightness. The air smelled stronger, earthy, and wet. I checked my phone once, more out of habit than worry. There was no signal, which didn't surprise me. I slipped it back into my pocket and kept going. After about 40 minutes, I noticed something small but unsettling. The path I had been following didn't look the same anymore. It hadn't vanished, but it was less clear, broken up by patches of leaves and fallen branches. I slowed down and paid closer attention to where I was stepping. I told myself it was normal. Trails fade. People stop using them. Nothing about that should have scared me, but my pace changed without me realizing it. I came across a spot where the ground was torn up. The dirt was dark and fresh, like something heavy had been dragged through. Branches were snapped low, not high like deer antlers would hit them, but low, around knee height. I stood there longer than I meant to, looking around, listening. The woods felt different there. The birds were gone. The air felt still, thick in my chest. I decided to turn back. That was when I realized I wasn't completely sure which direction I had come from. I knew generally, but the woods looked different when I turned around. Trees that had been on my left were now on my right, and the slope of the ground didn't match what I remembered. I picked a direction anyway and started walking, telling myself not to panic. The longer I walked, the more wrong it felt. The ground dipped sharply, forcing me downhill into a shallow valley filled with dead leaves and fallen logs. My boots slipped once, and I caught myself on a tree trunk, bark scraping my palm. The sound of my breathing felt too loud. Every step seemed to echo, even though I knew that wasn't possible. That's when I heard it. Not a growl, not a scream, just movement. Heavy movement, off to my right, deeper in the trees. Branches bending, leaves crunching under weight. Whatever it wasn't small. I froze, my hands still pressed against the tree. I listened, trying to pinpoint the sound, trying to tell myself it was just an animal moving away. It didn't move away. The sound stayed with me, matching my stillness. When I shifted my weight slightly, it shifted too. Slow, careful. That was the part that scared me the most. Animals don't usually move like that when they don't know you're there. This felt aware. I didn't run. I know people always say running is stupid, but fear makes your body decide things before your mind does. I started walking faster, uphill this time, not looking back. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it was shaking my ribs. The woods felt tighter, branches grabbing at my arms, my jacket catching on thorns. I could hear the movement again, closer now, not chasing exactly, but keeping pace. I smelled something bad then, not rot, not like a dead animal. It was sharper, almost metallic, mixed with a wet animal smell. I gagged and kept moving, breathing through my mouth. Sweat ran down my back even though the air was cool. I tripped over a root and went down hard. My knee slammed into the ground, pain shooting up my leg. I bit my tongue to keep from making a sound. For a few seconds, I stayed there, curled in on myself, listening. The movement stopped. The silence was so complete it rang in my ears. I forced myself up, ignoring the pain, and started moving again. Slower now, more careful. I didn't know where I was going anymore. All sense of direction was gone. Every tree looked the same. I felt small, exposed, like the woods were watching me from every angle. I came across an old clearing just as the light started to fade. In the middle was something I hadn't expected to see. A crude shelter made from fallen branches and pieces of rotting tarp. It wasn't old. The tarp was dirty but intact, tied with frayed rope. Nearby, the ground was packed down, flattened by repeated use. There were bones scattered near the edge of the clearing. Small ones, too many of them. My stomach dropped. This wasn't a campsite someone forgot about. This was something used, something hidden. I backed away slowly, every instinct screaming at me to leave, to disappear. That's when I heard breathing. It was close, too close. I didn't see anyone. I didn't see anything, but I could hear it, slow and controlled, coming from behind a cluster of trees at the edge of the clearing. I understood then that I wasn't just lost. I had wandered into someone else's place, someone who didn't want to be found. I ran. I didn't care about noise anymore. Branches snapped. Leaves flew up under my feet. My lungs burned. My knees screamed with every step, but I didn't stop. I heard movement again, faster now, less careful. Whatever had been following me wasn't hiding anymore. The light was almost gone when I saw the road. It felt unreal, like something my brain made up to keep me moving. Gravel crunched under my boots as I burst out of the tree line, gasping, barely able to stand. I didn't look back. I stumbled to my car, fumbled with the keys, and locked the doors the second I got inside. I sat there for a long time, shaking, watching the dark edge of the woods. Nothing came out. No one followed me onto the road. Eventually, my breathing slowed enough for me to drive. I never reported it. I didn't have proof and I didn't want to go back. But sometimes, late at night, I think about that shelter, the bones, the way the movement followed me without rushing. I think about how close I came to not finding the road. Now, whenever I pass a wooded area that looks quiet and empty, I don't feel calm anymore. I feel watched. And I know, deep down, that the woods don't need ghosts to be terrifying. There are real things out there, hiding, waiting, perfectly comfortable in places where people aren't supposed to wander. I went into the woods on a random weekday because I needed quiet. That was the honest reason. No deep meaning, no adventure plans. I had been working too much, sleeping badly, and snapping at people for no reason. The woods near my town were big, old, and mostly ignored. There were a few marked trails close to the road, but once you walked far enough, the signs stopped and the ground decided where you went. I had been there before, but never alone and never this deep. I parked on the side of a cracked dirt road where weeds grew through the gravel. The air smelled damp and cold, even though it was late afternoon. I remember checking my phone and thinking about the signal dropping to 1 bar. I didn't care. I put it in my pocket, locked the car, and stepped past the tree line. The woods swallowed Saond almost right away. The road noise faded fast, like someone turned a knob down instead of off. Leaves were thick on the ground, wet from rain the night before. Every step made a soft, heavy sound, like stepping on soaked cardboard. First, it felt good. The light came through the trees in thin lines. Dust and bugs floated in it. I walked slow, not really following anything, just moving where it felt open. I noticed small details like bark peeled off trees at shoulder height, old claw marks maybe, or people scraping bark off years ago. I saw empty beer cans half buried in leaves, rusted and sharp around the edges. That told me people came here sometimes, but not often. After maybe 40 minutes, I realized I hadn't seen a trail in a long time. No footprints, no broken branches at knee height. The forest floor looked untouched, like no one had walked there in years. That's when I felt the first real hint of worry, but it was small. I told myself I could just turn around. The problem was, everything behind me looked the same. The trees were tall and straight, spaced evenly, like they had been planted on purpose long ago. No landmarks, no big rocks, no creek, just trunks, leaves, and shadows. I picked a direction and walked, trying to stay calm. I paid attention to my breathing. I noticed how quiet it was. No birds, no wind. That bothered me more than anything else. Even deep woods usually have sound. This felt paused, like waiting. I kept walking and started to feel watched. Not in a movie way, just that small pressure on the back of my neck that makes you want to turn around, even though you know nothing will be there. I stopped and listened. My heart was loud in my ears. Somewhere far away, I heard a single branch snap. It wasn't close, but it wasn't random either. It sounded like weight, like something stepping down, not falling. I stood still for a long time. Nothing else happened. No more sound. I told myself it was an animal and started moving again. Faster this time. The ground began to slope downward. The trees grew closer together. The light faded even though the sun should have still been up. I checked my phone. No signal now. The time shocked me. It felt like maybe an hour had passed, but it had been over 3. That didn't make sense. I knew I hadn't stopped that long. My legs were tired, my mouth dry. I hadn't brought water. That was my first real mistake. I started marking trees as I walked. I scraped bark with my keys at chest height, making rough lines. After some time, I saw one of the marks again. My stomach dropped. That meant I was looping without knowing it. I felt stupid and angry at myself. I picked a new direction, straight downhill, hoping to hit water or a clearing. That's when I found the boot. It was old, brown leather, collapsed on its side. No foot inside. The laces were gone. The leather was cracked and soft, like it had been there for years. Around it, the leaves were disturbed, pressed down in a wide circle. Not dragged, pressed, like something heavy had stood there for a long time. I didn't touch it. I just stared. I told myself people lose things in woods all the time. Hunters, hikers. But this didn't feel dropped. It felt left. I moved on, faster now, not caring about noise. Branches scraped my arms. I didn't stop to wipe the blood. I just wanted out. The forest floor turned muddy. My boots sank with each step, pulling at my ankles. That's when I smelled it. A thick, sour smell, like rot and wet fur. It wasn't everywhere. Came and went as I moved, like pockets of bad air. I started hearing breathing that wasn't mine. Slow, steady, always just behind me. When I stopped, it stopped. When I moved, it moved. I never turned around. I was too scared of what I might see, or worse, that I wouldn't see anything at all. The light dropped fast. Not like sunset, but like clouds rolling over the sun all at once. Shadows stretched and merged. My hands shook. I dropped my keys and had to get on my knees to find them. While I was down there, I saw footprints in the mud. Bare, large, human-shaped but wrong somehow. The toes were too long, the heel too narrow, and they were fresh. I ran. I don't know how long I ran. My lungs burned. My legs felt numb. I tripped and fell hard, hitting my head. For a moment, everything went white and quiet. I thought that was it, that I would just lay there until whatever was following me caught up. But something else happened. I heard water, not dripping, flowing. I pushed myself up and staggered toward the sound. I broke through a wall of brush and nearly fell into a narrow river. The water was dark and fast, cutting through the woods like a scar. I didn't care. I followed it, slipping on rocks, falling, getting soaked. I didn't look back. I didn't slow down. After what felt like forever, I saw a shape ahead that didn't belong. Straight lines, gray color, concrete bridge. I cried when I saw it. I didn't even realize I was crying until my face felt wet. I climbed up the bank and onto the road. A real road, with tire marks and trash and oil stains. I collapsed on the asphalt and stayed there until a car stopped. I don't remember much after that. I was taken to a hospital. They said I was dehydrated, bruised, mild concussion. They asked where I had been. I couldn't explain it in a way that made sense. They nodded like they understood anyway. Weeks later, I went back during the day with a group of people. Rangers, volunteers. We followed the area I thought I had been in. They never found the river I described. The maps didn't show it. The ground where I said I fell was dry and flat. No mud, no footprints, no boot. I don't go into the woods anymore, not even the safe ones. Sometimes at night, when everything is quiet, I still smell that rot in the air. Sometimes I wake up breathing hard, sure that something is standing just behind me, waiting for me to stop moving again. I went into the woods because I wanted to clear my head. That was it. No plan beyond walking for a few hours and coming back before dark. I had done it plenty of times before in different places, and nothing bad had ever happened. This area wasn't a park, just a stretch of public land outside town that people used for hunting and hiking when they felt like it. No entrance sign, no map, no ranger station. Just a dirt pull-off and trees that went on forever. It was late morning when I parked. The air was cold but clean, the kind that makes your lungs feel sharp when you breathe in. The ground was soft from rain earlier in the week. I remember noticing how quiet it was when I shut the car door. Not peaceful quiet, empty quiet. No birds calling, no wind moving the leaves. Just stillness. I stepped off the road and into the trees. The woods closed in fast, branches blocking the sky, light turning green and dull. The smell was strong. Wet dirt, old leaves, something sour underneath it all. I walked without thinking much about direction, weaving between trees, stepping over fallen logs. Every now and then I checked behind me just to keep track of where I came from. After a while, I realized I had gone farther than I meant to. The ground changed. Fewer small plants, more rocks. The trees were thicker, their trunks scarred and dark. Some had strips of bark missing at chest height, too clean to be from animals. That should have been my first warning, but I ignored it. I kept walking. My phone lost signal. I didn't panic at first. I had time. The sun was still high, even if it was hard to see through the canopy. I figured I would walk in one direction until I hit something familiar. A road, clearing, anything. I started noticing trash. Not normal hiking trash like bottles or wrappers. This was heavier stuff. Pieces of black plastic, cut rope, a torn backpack frame. Everything looked old, like it had been sitting there for years, but it wasn't buried. It was placed. That made my skin tighten. The smell got worse the deeper I went. Not like something dead exactly, more like damp chemicals mixed with rot. It stuck in my nose and wouldn't go away. My boots sank into mud that hadn't been there earlier. The ground felt worked, disturbed. That's when I saw the first wire. It was thin, almost invisible, stretched low between two trees. I noticed it just before my leg hit it. I froze, heart hammering, and carefully stepped over it. It wasn't part of any fence. It was tied tight, deliberate. When I looked closer, I saw more of them ahead, some higher, some lower, crossing paths in messy lines. I understood then that I wasn't alone out there. I didn't run. I moved slowly, carefully backing away, trying to retrace my steps. But everything looked wrong now. The trees felt closer. The woods felt smaller, like I had stepped into a space that didn't want me in it. I scraped my arm on a branch and didn't even feel the pain at first. I heard movement off to my right. Heavy steps. Not fast, not slow. Just steady. I crouched behind a fallen log and waited, barely breathing. I never saw anyone, but I knew someone was there. I could feel it in the way the forest stayed silent, like it was holding its breath with me. After a long time, the steps moved away. I stayed where I was until my legs cramped and my hands shook. When I finally stood, I went the opposite direction, not caring where it led. That's when I found the clearing. It was hidden until the last second. Trees opened up to reveal a wide, muddy space with crude wooden structures scattered around. Not cabins, frames, holes driven into the ground, blue tarps stretched and torn. There were rows of plants I didn't recognize at first, tall and dry, surrounded by hoses and buckets. An illegal grow site, big enough to support multiple people. And it was active. Footprints were everywhere, fresh in the mud. Tools leaned against trees. A generator sat under a tarp, still warm. I smelled fuel. I smelled sweat. I smelled food that hadn't cooled yet. I knew then that I was in real danger. I backed away slowly, but my foot slipped. Mud squelched loud under my boot. The sound echoed in the clearing, sharp and wrong. I froze. I didn't wait to see if anyone noticed. I turned and ran. Branches tore at my face. Thorns caught my clothes. I fell hard, scraped my knee, felt blood soak into my pants. I didn't stop. I could hear running now, not far behind. Not shouting, just the sound of someone who knew the land better than I did. I pushed downhill, sliding more than running, crashing through brush, my lungs burning. I tripped again and rolled, hitting my shoulder against a rock. Pain exploded down my arm, but adrenaline carried me forward. I burst through a line of trees and nearly fell into a creek. The water was cold and fast. Without thinking, I stepped into it and followed it downstream, splashing through, soaking myself completely. I remembered reading once that water can hide tracks. I didn't know if it was true, but I hoped. I stayed in the creek until my legs went numb. When I finally climbed out, I kept moving, crawling through thick undergrowth, staying low. I didn't hear anyone behind me anymore, but that didn't mean I was safe. The light started to fade. The woods grew darker, shadows stacking on top of each other. Every sound made me flinch. My body shook from cold and fear. Finally, after what felt like hours, I heard a distant hum. Faint, steady. A road. I followed it, forcing my body to keep going, until I broke out of the trees and onto gravel. I collapsed right there, hands in the dirt, gasping. Headlights passed without stopping. I didn't care. I just lay there until my breathing slowed. I made it back to my car long after dark. It was untouched, sitting where I left it. When I got inside and locked the doors, I sat shaking for a long time before I could even turn the key. I never reported what I saw. I didn't go back. I didn't tell anyone the full story. I knew enough to understand that some parts of the woods aren't empty by accident. They stay quiet because people want them that way. I don't walk alone in places like that anymore. When I drive past stretches of trees that seem too still, too dark, I look straight ahead and keep going. Some areas aren't meant to be explored, not because of anything supernatural, but because real people do real things out there, and they don't want to be found. I went into the woods because I thought I knew them. That was the mistake. I had grown up around trees, trails, and dirt roads. I wasn't reckless, just confident in a quiet way. The kind of confidence that makes you skip small precautions because nothing bad has happened before. That morning, I parked at the edge of a Forest Service road that barely showed on maps. It wasn't illegal to be there, just forgotten. The road was cracked and overgrown, with grass pushing through the gravel. No other cars, no signs, just trees stacked deep and tall in every direction. The weather was cool and gray, the kind that feels stable but isn't. The sky was heavy with clouds, low enough that the treetops disappeared into them. I checked the time, shut the car door, and listened. The sound echoed louder than I expected, then faded. That silence came back again, thick and full, like the woods had closed their mouth. I walked in without a trail. The ground was soft, soaked from rain earlier in the week. Leaves stuck to my boots. The smell was strong and earthy, mixed with something old and bitter. I kept my hands in my jacket pockets, shoulders relaxed, moving slow. First, everything felt normal. Trees spaced just enough to walk between. Fallen logs covered in moss. Broken branches from storms long past. After a while, I noticed the woods weren't changing anymore. No landmarks, no big rocks or clearings. Just the same pattern over and over. Tall trunks, low brush, mud. It felt like walking inside a photo that never updated. I stopped and turned around to look back, trying to memorize something, anything, but it all blended together. I told myself not to overthink it. I picked a direction and kept walking. The first thing that really bothered me was the lack of sound. No birds, no squirrels, no wind. Even my footsteps sounded wrong, too loud, like they didn't belong. Every time I stopped, the quiet pressed in harder, making my ears ring. I checked my phone. No signal. I didn't panic yet, but I did slow down. I started paying closer attention to the ground, trying to spot my own tracks. Mud should have made that easy, but I couldn't find them. Either the ground was too disturbed or I wasn't looking in the right place. Then I saw the tree with the mark. It was a long scrape in the bark, vertical, deep enough to expose pale wood underneath. It wasn't old. Sap still glistened around the edges. I stood there staring at it, trying to convince myself it was from an animal or falling debris. But it was too straight, too deliberate, and it was at shoulder height. I moved on faster after that. The land dipped downward, and the mud turned thick and sticky. My boots pulled at my feet with every step. I slipped once and caught myself on a tree, smearing wet dirt across my sleeve. My heart was beating harder now, not from effort, but from the growing sense that I was somewhere I shouldn't be. That's when I heard it. A single footstep. Not close, but not far either. Heavy. Slow. I stopped. I waited. My breathing sounded too loud in my own head. After a long moment, I took one careful step forward. Another step answered it. I didn't turn around. I didn't want to see anything. I just changed direction, angling downhill, hoping to hit water or a road. The steps followed. Not chasing, just keeping pace. Like whatever it was didn't need to rush. Branches snagged my jacket. Thorns cut into my hands. I pushed through, feeling panic tighten in my chest. The smell changed then, sharp and sour, like sweat mixed with rust. It clung to the air and made my stomach turn. I broke into a jog, then a run. The footsteps behind me stayed steady, never getting louder, never falling behind. That scared me more than if they had been sprinting. I tripped on a hidden root and went down hard. My knee hit first, then my shoulder. Pain flared bright and hot. I scrambled to get up, slipping in the mud, heart hammering. For a second, I thought I heard breathing close by, but I didn't look back to confirm it. I limped forward, pushing through brush, until I saw a narrow stream cutting through the trees. Without thinking, I stepped into it. The water was freezing, shocking my legs numb. I followed it downstream, splashing, hoping it would hide my trail. Every few steps, I looked back, expecting to see someone standing there. I didn't. After a long time, my legs started shaking uncontrollably. I climbed out of the water and collapsed behind a fallen log, pulling wet leaves over myself without thinking. I lay there, soaked and shaking, listening. Minutes passed, then more. I heard nothing. No footsteps, no movement. The light began to fade. The woods grew darker fast, shadows filling in the spaces between trees. My knee throbbed, swelling inside my pants. I knew I couldn't stay there overnight. Hypothermia was a real risk, even if no one was following me anymore. I forced myself up and kept moving, slow and careful. I followed the stream until it widened and flattened. Then I heard something new. A low hum, distant, constant. A road. I followed the sound, dragging my leg, pushing through the last line of trees until I stumbled onto gravel. I fell onto my hands and knees and stayed there, breathing hard, mud dripping from my clothes. Eventually, I stood and walked along the road until I recognized a bend I remembered from earlier that day. My car was still there, untouched. When I got inside and locked the doors, my hands shook so badly I could barely start the engine. I drove straight home and didn't stop once. In the days that followed, I cleaned my wounds and tried to convince myself it was just fear and bad luck. But the scrape on the tree, the footsteps, the smell, and the way the woods went silent all stuck with me. I didn't imagine the injury. I didn't imagine getting lost. I never went back to that place. I don't wander off trails anymore. I don't trust quiet woods. Some places aren't dangerous because of myths or monsters. They're dangerous because people can disappear there, and no one would ever know why. I went into the deep woods because I wanted distance from everything. Not just people, but noise, schedules, screens, and the feeling of being watched all the time. The area wasn't a park. It was a stretch of forest that barely showed up on public maps, owned by the state but rarely checked. Hunters used it sometimes during season. A few locals cut through it to reach old logging roads, but most people stayed away because it was big, thick, and unforgiving. I parked my truck at the end of a washed-out gravel road. Grass grew through the cracks and fallen branches blocked half the path. No other vehicles were around. I stood there for a minute with the door open, listening. Wind moved the treetops far above, but down at ground level everything felt muted. I locked the truck and stepped into the tree line. The woods swallowed me fast. Light faded within a few steps, turning gray and dull. The ground was soft and uneven, covered in wet leaves that stuck to my boots. The smell was strong, a mix of rot, damp wood, and something metallic underneath. I kept walking, following no trail, just moving deeper because that was the point. At first, it felt peaceful in a heavy way, the kind of quiet that presses down instead of opening up. I focused on small things to stay grounded. My breathing, the sound of my boots, the feel of cold air in my lungs. Trees grew closer together the farther I went. Thick trunks, dark bark, branches tangled like wire. After about an hour, I realized I hadn't seen any signs of animals. No birds, no deer tracks, no fresh scat. That was strange. Even in deep woods, there's usually something. Here it felt empty, like life had stepped back. The land dipped lower, and the soil turned muddy. I slipped once and caught myself on a tree, smearing dark, wet dirt across my sleeve. I noticed then that several nearby trees had similar marks on them. Not scratches, not random damage. Long vertical scrapes, deep enough to expose pale wood. Some were high, well above my head. Others were lower, uneven, like something had been dragged. I stood there longer than I should have, staring at those marks. My chest felt tight. I didn't like how fresh some of them looked. I told myself it was old equipment damage or animals. I didn't want to think beyond that. I kept going. Time moved strangely in the woods. The light barely changed, but when I checked my phone, hours had passed. No signal. Battery already lower than it should have been. I stopped using it after that, slipping it back into my pocket. The deeper I went, the worse the silence became. Even my footsteps sounded wrong, too sharp, like the forest didn't want them. When I stopped walking, the quiet felt thick enough to touch. My ears rang. That's when I smelled it. It wasn't the smell of something dead. Not exactly. It was sour and heavy, like sweat soaked into old clothes mixed with wet iron. Came and went as I moved, drifting in pockets. Every time I smelled it, my stomach tightened. I slowed down, scanning the ground. That's when I noticed footprints. They were human, bare feet pressed deep into the mud. Big prints, long toes. The stride was uneven, like the person limped or dragged one leg. The prints were fresh. Water hadn't settled in them yet. I froze. I stood there listening, heart pounding so hard it felt like it might give me away. Somewhere far off, a branch snapped. Then another, closer this time. Heavy movement, not rushed, not cautious either. I turned and walked the other way, trying not to panic. My breathing came fast anyway. I could feel it shaking in my chest. I kept my eyes forward, not wanting to see more tracks. The movement followed. Every time I stopped, it stopped. When I moved, it moved. Always behind me, never close enough to hear breathing, but close enough that I knew it wasn't my imagination. The ground grew rougher. Rocks cut through the soil. Roots twisted up like traps. I tripped and fell hard, scraping my palms and knee. Pain flared bright. I scrambled up, adrenaline wiping it away, and started moving faster. The smell got stronger. I broke into a run, crashing through brush, branches slapping my face and arms. The woods seemed to close in, trees tighter, paths narrower. I felt watched from every direction now, not just behind me. I ran downhill without thinking and nearly fell into a shallow ravine. At the bottom, water trickled through mud and stones. I followed it, slipping, sliding, soaking my boots. Cold water numbed my feet fast, but I didn't care. I kept moving, hoping it would hide my tracks. After a long stretch, I climbed out and collapsed behind a fallen log, chest heaving. I lay there shaking, pulling wet leaves over myself, barely daring to breathe. My heart thudded so loud I was sure it could be heard. Minutes passed, then more. I heard footsteps again. Slow, careful. They moved along the edge of the ravine, then stopped. I could smell that sour, metallic scent stronger than ever. Felt close, too close. I shut my eyes, teeth clenched, body locked tight. Then the steps moved away. I stayed hidden until my muscles cramped and my body started to go numb from the cold. When I finally moved, the forest looked darker. The light had dropped without me noticing. Evening had come fast. I knew I couldn't stay. I forced myself up and picked a direction, any direction, and walked. Every shadow looked wrong. Every sound made me flinch. My knee throbbed with each step, and my soaked boots squelched softly. Eventually, I heard something new. A low rumble, distant, steady. At first I thought it was thunder, but it didn't fade. It stayed constant. A road. I followed the sound, pushing through the last stretch of trees until I stumbled onto cracked asphalt. I fell to my knees right there, hands on the ground, breathing hard. The road was empty, but it was real. It meant people. It meant safety. I limped along it until I recognized the bend near where I parked. My truck was still there. Seeing it made my chest loosen in a way I didn't realize was possible. I got inside and locked the doors immediately. I sat there shaking for a long time before I could drive. I never went back to those woods. I never told anyone exactly where they were. I cleaned my wounds and tried to forget the smell, the tracks, the silence. But some things stick. Now, when I pass deep forests, the kind that stretch on without signs or trails, I understand why some places feel empty. It's not because nothing is there. It's because something is, and it doesn't want to be found.